Welcome back. Thanks for staying with me. So we're going to take a look at what I call, your basic bug out bag or emergency bag, evacuation bag, whatever name you want to give it. And, this isn't for the, fanciful YouTube bug out, all that kind of stuff. This is something that really everyone should have in case of an emergency. And I know people always say, well, I'm not leaving my house. Well, you don't know that. The people in Texas probably weren't planning on leaving their house. The people in North Carolina, Chicago, and whatever, you name it, none of those people were probably planning on leaving their house either. Go back to Ohio with that train wreck, if y'all remember that. Probably don't, because, people have a short memory these days. But, those people didn't want to leave their house either. But when you've got a toxic cloud of gas coming your way, or natural disasters, you may not have a choice but to leave. So if you do, you should have something like this that you can very quickly and easily grab. It's all together and you can go right out the door and at least have some things to keep you going. So let's go ahead and bust into this and not waste any more time. So also, this bag is not necessarily those particular items themselves. It's more categories of items, if you will. Like, don't copy this thinking this is what you need. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. A lot of these things you can probably already have at home, but the idea is getting everything put together in one bag that you can quickly and easily grab. Because when, time matters and you're under the gun, running to this end of the house and grabbing this, and the other end grabbing that, and this is here and that's there, you're not going to remember everything that you need and or will want, in that kind of situation. So that's more the idea here, is not the item specifically, although these are good items. It's more, categories of items and putting it together for you, because it is going to be different for everyone. Now, this is a Field Line Pro Series backpack. This is just one of those that came from Walmart, I don't know, a few years I've had it, and it's actually an okay backpack. I've used it, not a ton, I guess, but quite a bit, and it's held together. But I'm sure you're wanting to get into the items, so let's get into the items. So first of all, of course, we have the little American flag patch. You can take it or leave it, whatever, but the medical cross there, though, that is a good idea. That way it'll let other people know there are medical items in here. Should you get knocked in the head and you're unconscious or whatever, or just need somebody to grab it, it's easy to tell them, hey, you got the medical cross right there. So let's open this up and see what we got going on in here. So this first pocket, which, having the medical cross out here might make some think that this is the medical portion, but I mean, there is some medical in here. So let's just go ahead and see what all we've got in here. First of all, we'll start with this little zipper pocket first here. And this is in no particular order, obviously, just going through the pockets here. So these are some biodegradable wipes, which are a very good idea to have, obviously, for going to the bathroom or just cleaning yourself up, or, being it is summertime and it's hot, wiping that sweat off at the end of the day is a really good thing to do. So little package of wipes, definitely recommended. This is just one of those cheap, Ozark Trail, super thin plastic emergency ponchos, which can be used as an emergency poncho, but it can also be, crafted into other things if you needed it, but either way, lightweight, small, worth having in my opinion. And then these, got about 5 of these little expandable towels in here, the ones you get a little water on and they expand quite nicely. Got about 5 of these in here, take them or leave them, your choice. And then this, in this little zipper bag, this is my, Sawyer Mini, and This does have the regular Sawyer squeeze bag in it that it comes with, but, well, and your cleaning syringe and the straws in there too, I do believe. But I also have one of the CNOC bags, which is a much better bag than the, the factory one that comes with it. So, basically this is just going to be used as a backup to the CNOC bag because it is much better to use. But then also in here I do have some coffee filters if you needed to filter the water, if it had a bunch of junk in it or something. And also the potable aqua water purification tabs, you would keep those as well, just in case your filter goes down, you lose it, whatever the case may be. It's always good to have these as a backup. And then also in there, just various drink mixes and stuff. You've got some Propel, some Liquid IV, some coffees, a little hot cocoa in there too, which this Land O'Lakes brand cocoa is actually pretty darn good. But keep all that stuff in there because, you need, drinking just plain water is good. But I mean, if you're in a situation where you're dehydrating a lot, putting just water back in isn't enough. You need those electrolytes too. So that's where those other drink mixes come in handy. All right, and then what we see here, good pair of leather work gloves, which you can see these have been used a bit. And just have some of those little jersey glove, the little thin gloves in there as like a liner. Cold weather, it does help keep a little warm, but you can take those out if it's too hot. And then here is a little bag of goodies, so let's get this opened up. And got a Right in the Rain pad with the little pencil in there that is not sharpened, and that's okay because there's also a mechanical pencil in there and a Right in the Rain pen also in there. So pens, pencils, good to go. Just in case you need to write anything down, which you may not, but doesn't hurt to have, always a good idea. And then also in here, anti-fog lens cloth and a regular lens cloth. Some earplugs, which, at first glance you might think you wouldn't need something like this, and maybe you wouldn't. But, maybe whoever you're bedding down with snores a lot, maybe you need those. Maybe you're just in a loud environment in general, or maybe you're going to use a firearm, whatever the case. Super small and light, might as well keep them in there. And this is just a small compass, which works perfectly well. Now, you're not going to do land nav or nothing like that with this. This is just for basic general orientation to make sure you're going the right direction. Which, do you need a big land nav style compass? I don't know. That depends on your situations and, where you could be going and all that stuff. But I would at least have a small compass, at least so you have some general direction ability. And this is called a hot lips, but it's kind of hard to understand. I'll show you in a minute what this is. But you can put this on your metal cup if you've heated it up, and allows you to drink out of it without burning your lip. But I'll show you that in just a minute. And then we also have an extra tourniquet in here, a genuine cat tourniquet, and also some sunscreen. A lot of people don't really think about that, but if you should have to walk or be outside for some reason, whatever that reason is, you might want to have some sunscreen on you. So just a thought. And then also titanium long-handled spoon. The long handle really helps if you're, trying to get into a freeze-dried meal or just to stir a pot or anything. That long handle's really nice versus, the shorter shorter ones they have. And then we have a knife in here, and of course this one's just your Mora, and you know, I did a little bit of artwork on there, if you want to call it that. I was basically just trying out the patina process, and it works. But you know, just a Mora HD, you know, companion, really any of the Moras, or you know, whatever knife you prefer. This is just a cheap, reliable option that would work for anybody. And you can also get it in multiple colors, whatever color you would like. And continuing on up here, we've got a little pocket, which this stuff isn't necessarily organized in this bag the best way. You know, I mean, you could organize it however you want it. I mean, obviously, like this pocket has tons of organizational pockets, so you could organize the thing however you wanted. A watch, got a watch in here. Always good to have that, because you may need to know what time it is to be somewhere, or whatever the case might be. You know, telling time is a good thing, and if it has the hands on it like that, you can actually use that for, you know, land navigation as well. And then we've got a head net here, a bug head net, which is also a good idea. Again, you know, if you're going to be out and about, the bugs will just bother you to death. I mean, they just never leave you alone. So having a head net might be a good option. And what else is in here? The ubiquitous roll of Gorilla duct tape, again, for repairs or just fashioning items or whatever, you know, whatever it may need to be, even into medical, you know. So the tape is just good all the way around. Fire starting, you name it, it works for many things, as you probably already know. So this is the Gordon brand, or you know, the Harbor Freight brand. Their multi-tool they released not too long ago, which is a not a one-for-one clone, but it's definitely highly inspired by the Leatherman Wave. And actually, I'll have a review coming up on this very soon, you know, comparing it to the Wave. But I can tell you, first impressions are very good. I think so far, I think it's probably a viable choice, but definitely have a multi-tool, because it can be used for, again, repairing, getting in, getting out, you know, whatever. It does have knives and saws and screwdrivers and you name it. And it doesn't have to be carried in the belt pouch. It does have a clip, so however a person wanted to do it. And that's gonna do it for this pocket. We'll undo some straps here and we'll head into the main. So one thing on the side here, a bottle of water. Always keep water ready to go in the bag. You're not gonna have time to stop and fill it up, or think to grab one while you're trying to think to grab everything else. Just have it in there, have it ready to go. And the reason why I've got a Smart Water is it works with the Sawyer filter. So, you know, if you're gonna have water in your bag, I would also have the filter that works with that particular bottle. All right, going into the main pocket, and we do have a lot of goodies in here. First of which is your trauma medical kit, and I have a review on everything in this and going over that, which you can check that out. But that has, you know, your tourniquets, your quick clot, your packing gauze, all that good stuff, chest seals, you name it, all that's in there. If you have questions about that, watch the video on that, and it probably explains it. And if not, you can ask some more questions beyond that. Here we have another emergency blanket, just one of the regular cheapo, you know, no big deal. It can be used for shelter, but it can also be used as medical, obviously. And for other things too. If you're in the sun, maybe you need to make some kind of sunshade, you can. Now I do have one in here, but it's always good to have another. And this is a fire kit in a waterproof bag. Got that tin in there. Now maybe, you know, a person isn't gonna need a massive fire kit, you know, if you had your Bic lighter and some good tinder and a ferro rod, maybe that would be enough. But this I also keep just for fun, why not? This is a torch lighter, but it has a safety on it. Your cover is your safety, so I like that. And then this is actually fluid for this. Now, like I said, this right here may be overkill because, you know, are you going to use the lighter enough that you're going to run it out and need to refill it? Probably not, but you just never know. And this is a little candle here. These are made by Exotac, but these little candles can be used in conjunction, you know, with ponchos or the emergency blanket to, you know, make little shelters that you can warm yourself and this and that, although this time of year I don't know that that would be necessary, but still use it for lighter, flame extender, or, you know, whatever you choose. And inside this tin, not gonna drag it all out, but inside there you can see there's a Bic lighter, there's a ferro rod, a little bit more duct tape, and lots of tinders and, you know, all that good stuff inside of that. And in the next pocket here, glasses. I wear contacts, so having a pair of glasses is a really good idea for obvious reasons. And then also in here, we've got a map, because, you know, you might have to go somewhere. Gotta have a map, always a good idea. And you could get more detailed maps of your area if that's what you needed. That's just a state map, you know, to give you general idea. That's not gonna, you know, get down to like the topographic level, so. And also for fun, why not keep the Constitution in here too? You get bored and wanna read something, that's one of your reading options. Then also I do keep a pocket-sized Bible in here, you know, so between the two, you should have, you know, all the reading material that you need and point you in the right direction. Now this is something that maybe you don't need, but I've got a few of the, you know, silver, real silver quarters and a few dimes, and not a lot, just a few, you never know. Wouldn't use them obviously unless I was getting the silver content out of them, you know, so. Do you need them? Maybe, maybe not, but I would recommend to have cash at the very least, you know, if you don't want to go that route. All right, so then here, this is the Corporal's Corner cup and bottle set, you know, which they're pretty well the same as all of them out there, you know, the Pathfinder and the other brands you can find on Amazon. I mean, they're all made in China, none are made in America, so, you know, get which one suits you that you like. You know, this one I don't believe is available anymore, so you probably won't be able to get this specific one, but like I said, the Pathfinder ones or any of those others will do just fine, just like this will. And it comes with a metal cup, and let's see, yeah, this one doesn't have a stove, but it does have the metal cup. Oh yeah, those deals. So the hot lips here, let's see there, we can put the hot lips on the cup, so when you drink out of the cup, if it's hot liquid, you know, coffee or hot cocoa, you're not going to burn your lip with the cup. Because if you've never drank out of a single wall cup like this with something hot in it, you know, you just may not understand what the use or how useful this could be. But if you have, you would know how useful those are. And then we also have one of the little Mylar bivy bags, you know, which may or may not be necessary. Again, it's highly dependent upon your area and, you know, what you may need to do or want to do, but very lightweight and definitely helps out in a pinch, you know, for making a little impromptu shelter. So good to have that. And here in this little bag, I keep the Esbit stove, which can work with that there. It just has the fuel cubes that you burn inside there, and then your cup sits on top like that. Probably seen those before, but very lightweight and works every time. Great to have. Really like that. And here, this is a rolled up contractor bag. These are the heavy mil. They're 5 mil, I think they are. And these are the really thick, heavy duty ones. So this can be used again in a multitude of ways. You know, you can pack this up with leaves to make you a little mattress sort of thing to use with your impromptu shelters, or you know, you can make this into a poncho, which, you know, we won't need to do because we have one, but you know, you can put your whole entire bag in this, or put all your contents in this, in your bag to waterproof it. And there's a lot of things can be done with just these contractor bags. So another good item to have just in case you need it. And then we have a poncho, which, you know, you could call it military style, because this is actually the Arcturus poncho, which actually I've really liked. It's lightweight, you know, small and compactable, but does a really good job of keeping the rain off. But it also has the grommets that you could use it, you know, as a tarp, and with your other shelter items, you know, you could build a pretty good shelter out of this. Now, you know, does everyone need this, you know, for shelter? Probably not, but I would recommend some kind of rain gear, you know, for the bag, be it, you know, a poncho like this, or if it's just a rain jacket or whatever. But a waterproof layer for your person is definitely a good idea. So pulling this out, this is actually just a dry bag, obviously, and what I have in here are a change of clothes, you know, a few pairs of socks and underwear and whatnot. You know, you want to have at least one change of clothes, and I would say 2 or 3 extra pair of socks besides the ones you're wearing. And, you know, keep that in something that it'll stay dry, because like I said, if you happen to grab this, run out the door, you know, you might want to have at least 1 pair of extra clothes. But also in this bag, there is a hygiene kit in there, you know, and that's going to have your toothbrush, toothpaste, deodorant, you know, all of your hygiene sort of things, you know, is kept in there. But also any medications that you may need on a daily basis, you know, for whatever reason, you know, it wouldn't be hard to have 3 minutes to grab stuff and run out of the house and forget that. So having your, you know, prescription medications or over-the-counter, whatever, medications in this bag is a great idea, and I just put them with the hygiene and the clothes. So, and then in this here, and this is something maybe not everybody needs, but what this is one of the Faraday dry bags that I make. So this has the Faraday material in it to protect, you know, your items against, you know, an EMP or any of that. It can also be used, you know, to keep people from tracking you. You know, you throw your phone in there and they can't track it, you know, and there's other uses too. But in this bag, headlamp. I would definitely keep a headlamp in this kit. Now, also, you know, a person might have their EDC stuff with them as well. So maybe if you don't see something here, perhaps it's EDC, but a headlamp is definitely something a person should have. And then here, this is just a battery bank. This is the voltaic systems, but you know, any battery bank would do for this. You know, I would prefer one that has what's called pass-through charging, which means you can have your battery hooked up to your solar panel, but also hooked up to your device, charging it all at the same time, because typically you can't do that with a battery bank. You can either charge it or use it. There's usually not both. So this one does both, so that's really cool. But there's a lot of them out there that do. There's Goal Zero, there's Zender, there's Anchor, there's several of them, but if you just read, it'll say pass through, you know, more than likely in the description, and if not, that's okay too. And this, of course, is all the different cables and cords and junk that a person might need for recharging and whatnot. Then in this bag, I keep the little Baofeng radio. And, you know, this may not be something everybody needs, but, you know, having a walkie-talkie or a Baofeng radio in this case, you can hear the weather, you can listen to the radio, you can communicate with other people, you know, and these are a cheap option that may not be bad, but, you know, there is some knowledge that has to go with this as well. You know, you're not just going to throw it in there and it'll work. So maybe not something everybody needs, but definitely something I would recommend. Now, continuing in our little bag here, this is the Big Blue Solar Power 20, but this is just a small fold-up solar panel, and this one is a 20 watt, but it actually puts out what it claims, not like a lot of these online that'll say they're 20 watt, but they really put out 12. This one's not that way. It does it all, and it's waterproof and all this and that. But I made this Faraday bag, you know, specifically to fit this solar panel and the battery pack and some other items in there with it too. So if anybody had any interest in one of these, hit me up. We can make that happen. And last in here, we've got some food. So when it comes to food, you know, it doesn't have to be MREs or Mountain House. It can honestly be just, you know, whatever you choose yourself, you know, whether you want it to be, like I say, Mountain House MREs, or if you want to just make your own MREs with the stuff you like, you know, it's a good idea. But either way, I think I would probably focus more on foods that are ready to eat, you know, or easily made, you know, whereas that Mountain House, you got to boil water and then put the water in it and let it sit for, you know, 15 minutes or however long, and then you can eat it, you know. I mean, they can also be cold soaked. They don't have to have hot water, but you get my point though. If you're using things more like, you know, protein bars and that sort of thing, it's much simpler, especially on the move, to eat and keep going. But that is pretty much everything that I would call basic. Perhaps it's not basic with everything. It's definitely not minimal. But even so, with all this stuff, it's not that heavy. It's maybe 20 pounds, and that's with the water. So, you know, not a ton of weight here. And could a lot of these items be scaled back? You bet they could. You know, especially like, say, the fire kit and perhaps, you know, the radio and this and that. There's things that could be deleted if a person wanted to, you know. But I think as a basic setup, this would, you know, pretty much have anything that anybody needed to get by on, as, you know, a grab and take out of the house in less than 5 minutes kind of thing. You know, it would definitely make life a whole lot easier. And, you know, it may be different for you. You know, tell me in the comments what you think, you know, if you would add or subtract, or, you know, things that you might use that you don't see here. And that would be cool to hear your experiences as well. And there will probably be more videos on this type of thing, you know, whereas I'm calling this basic, perhaps we'll have a intermediate and an advanced, and, you know, we'll have some more depending on how this is received. So with that, let's go ahead and just wrap it up here. And I thank you all for watching. And if you would, hit that like, subscribe, and share. Believe it or not, it does really help out smaller channels like mine. And in the analytics, it says, you know, that 80% are unsubscribed or whatever. So hit that subscribe, and keep an eye out for our upcoming content, like the multi-tool from Harbor Freight. And with that one, have a good one, and we'll see you in the next one.